Exciting! Neo Geo! Max 330メガの劇的体験 Neo Geo System SNK.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and our continuing series, Neo Nostalgia, where I take a look at some of my favorite Neo Geo games of all time. And today we have Prehistoric Isle 2. The original game was not even on the Neo Geo, but at the end it did tease that there was going to be a sequel. It took them a long time to get to it, but they finally did, and we're going to talk about it today. Before we get too far involved, then do me a huge favor, down below hit like and subscribe. That notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But this is just a really fun shmup. It's not the highest tier on the system, and if you're not into dinosaurs, you might not like it whatsoever, but what is here is just a ton of fun from start to finish. It's a fun game, it's an amusing game, it's a fun game to look at, and it's a competent shmup. It just has that style that I really get entertained by, and it might look familiar. This might feel like a Pulstar or a Blazing Star based upon those pre-rendered graphics, but this was made by Source, where Pulstar and Blazing Star were made by ICOM, so there is no real link between them as far as development's concerned. It just always reminds me of the two, so before someone comments down below and asks me if it's part of that same franchise, I can definitely tell you it is not. But it is just so much fun, flying around, shooting dinosaurs out of the air, the blood effects when you shoot them, and how it kind of plays around with the mechanics. You get this very Metal Slug looking helicopter coming in here with that cross on the side, and you need to shoot dinosaurs before they attack the humans on the ground. And for being so tiny, they have so much personality to them. Each one runs in a different way. Even things that are nothing more than like 20 pixels have a lot of amusement factor to them. But we got 20 out of 20 survivors on that helicopter, but there are still 2 left, and we can pick them up on our helicopter and carry them through the level. If we take a hit of damage, we lose one of them, and if we don't, we get to keep them. But I love this transition here, how it plays around what looks like to be FMV video, but is just a successive sequence of images. It does the best on the system, I think, of making things feel like they're running in like FMV in the background. I love how that dinosaur just pops out of the water and attacks the ship and gives us 4 more people we can rescue. And you'll see that you can drop them off. If you touch this helicopter, they will jump off, and depending on how many you get to the helicopter, you get different bonuses. I got 4 because I brought 4 survivors, so you'll want to try to maintain keeping them throughout the entire level, because that helicopter is almost always right before a boss. And I don't know all my dinosaurs. I'm not even sure if this is a real one. It could be wholly imaginary, but if you do know dinosaurs, leave me a comment down below and tell me what species that is. It's just a ton of fun to be a flying helicopter shooting at a dinosaur. It's got some real bootleg Jurassic Park vibes going on in the best way possible. But now that we're past stage 1, we move on to stage 2, and I love this water effect. All the visual trickery going on in Prehistoric Isle 2 I absolutely love, and I do have a soft spot for these pre-rendered sprites. Things like Donkey Kong Country, Blazing Star, Pulstar, and Prehistoric Isle 2. They're just a lot of fun. And sometimes the game just stops completely just to show you something. That rocky outcrop there breaks apart, and there are ruins underneath. It kind of reminds me of From Dusk Till Dawn, when you find out the club that they stopped at was actually an ancient vampire ruin. It's just what it reminds me of. There is no connection, but sometimes I like to say what things correlate inside of my head. You even get some sandworms that come out of the ground. Definitely no dinosaur did that as far as I'm concerned. And you get a little Castlevania vibe. These aren't bone dragons, they are fossils, but they have the same look to them. And it always makes me laugh when I see them, because you can clearly tell whoever designed these played and loved Castlevania, because it almost feels like an homage to that. But now that we've defeated them, we get to go up and we get to take on another boss. And the bosses are all a ton of fun. I love this sunset that we're flying into here as well. The game has a really nice sense of time of day, kind of giving you that golden hour. You'll see here that I picked those 2 characters up, but because I died right when that helicopter showed up, I'm actually not able to access it. But this game also has a really good soundtrack as well, so I'll go ahead and let you listen for like 45 seconds during the boss fight, but I will be right back. Enjoy! The developers did one good thing in this game. You get a siren to tell you that your health is low, but it only blares twice and then stops. And if you haven't been watching my channel, I always complain about sirens that go on forever until you die. Moving on to the third stage, this background definitely overstays its welcome, but when you first see it, this is just such a fun look. It really does feel like a pixelated FMV video playing in the background while the game happens on top of you, but obviously the Neo Geo isn't capable of playing full motion video unless you have the Neo Geo CD, so this is actually done in hardware with sprite and background trickery, and it's a ton of fun. For some reason though, the boss of this stage is basically a gimme. All of his projectiles you can shoot, those feathers you can destroy, and it's just a really weird thing for the boss to be that easy when some of the previous bosses were much harder. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to get a freebie now and then, but it is surprising that this is that easy. And if you watch the previous videos, you'll remember the name Saurus because they did Shock Troopers, one of my favorite games of all time on the Neo Geo, and often mentioned as one of the best games on the platform. They also made Shock Troopers Second Squad, a much inferior game that also used pre-rendered sprites where the original game did not. I think the pre-rendering works a lot better in Prehistoric Isle 2 than it did in Shock Troopers Second Squad. Like these trilobites here, these bugs, and these flowers that shoot things off of the trees at you. It just looks so much fun. This game is filled with style as well as substance because the actual shmup mechanics are quite good. It's a challenging game, and I do like the health bar aspect. It's not one of those shmups where one bullet means a death. If you do take damage though, the level of your gun is going to lessen. You'll see that at moments in time you're able to up the power of that as well. So there is definitely a downside to taking a hit even though it doesn't kill you. You are going to lose some of that weaponry. But I love that this bee ends up turning into this giant centipede that runs all over the screen. You're never quite sure where he's going to pop up next, you just know you need to avoid him. It's just a fun character design and does remind me of Pulstar in certain ways because that was a very bug heavy game as well. But you'll see here, the patterns are both organic as well as a little bit geometric, and they do work well. I would say maybe the hitbox on your helicopter is slightly bigger than most shmups, or that might just be that I wasn't playing as well today when I captured it. I did a decent job, but not spectacular. But I love moving on, we get this exploding volcano in the background, and now that we're in the later parts of the game, it does get quite difficult. There is so much stuff going around, and I've been hit a few times so my gun is back down at level 1, and that's when the game gets even harder. You have more bullets to deal with, your gun is diminished, and now you need to start playing perfectly, or else you're going to be eating up a lot of quarters to play this. Granted, we're playing it on MiSTer FPGA or an original Neo Geo, so there's no quarters involved, but you get my point. The game can definitely be difficult, but it is a difficulty that I want to get better at. But because the soundtrack is so good and I love it so much, I'm going to give you one more 25-second snippet, and I'll come back and finish out the video on the history of Prehistoric Isle 2. Enjoy! It's such a dramatic soundtrack, and it definitely fits because there's a lot of drama when you're fighting dinosaurs in a helicopter, and right when you get towards the end you get these 4 flying monsters that are shooting at you in all directions. It is just a little bit of a challenge before we get to the final boss, and I just love that lava in the background as well. Now, I am no paleontologist, I don't know everything there is to know about dinosaurs. That one definitely seems real to me, but the final boss in the game, like I said, if this actually existed, I would be quite surprised. And the joke is, clearly this isn't a real dinosaur. It looks like a giant sperm whale just breaching the depths that ends up turning into this red, veiny, squid-looking character. If that animal ever existed, it was only in mythology. That is some Lovecraft business right there. But it is a really fun boss to look at and fight. But yeah, that's Prehistoric Isle 2. It's definitely not to the level of Pulstar or Blazing Star or some of the Neo Geo's best shmups on paper, but it's an absolute blast to play. From start to finish, it's fun, it's unique, it's so good that finally SNK got around to the sequel to Prehistoric Isle. I just love it. Sure that I'll have a video on Neo Geo next week, and I'll have other videos throughout the week as well, but this game is great. Bye bye.